Morning, all. Welcome to our weekly local area discovery session. This is session number 30, and today's date is September 26th. We'll go ahead and get started with our project updates, and then we will hop right into UAT week 3. Al, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Taylor. Okay, we are in the first week of Sprint 16. I just want to tell you what that means in relationship to UAT. The items that came through UAT in one and cycle 1 and cycle 2 will be put into that we open stories on will be put into development next sprint, which would be about a week from now, and come out 2 weeks later. So I just wanted to make sure you knew those numbers that we have inside of the OneNote that we'll talk about later. Those will be a couple weeks out for you to actually see those back into UAT. Okay. We're working on that, of course, and also customer intake. Customer profile has been shelled out, I believe, in at least the bones of it. Service collections. We're working on ETPL pre-screen pages that you'll get to see in a little while, maybe a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, probably at the least. And then we're doing a lot on data migration. We stage data over. So as you probably know, there's a process that has to be developed so that we can run it over and over until we finally run it at the end. But in order to build up that process, we have to do it kind of step by step. Our first step was to try to get a process that stages the data over to our database, and then we can do the transformation part as we go. We're continuing work on discovery on customer intake, the applications. Some of you have been seeing some of that stuff. Expand case management with universal career plan assessments and case notes. Measured services skills gain, major skills gain is a long ways along too. I'm sure that will be something presented to you in a little bit. That's under review right now. And then the state's working on the training program definition, rearranging a lot of those questions and how those training programs are built out, making into a sections. And that once that gets done, then we'll be able to put the requirements together for that and screen mock-ups for that. Also, consistently in a thread is the federal reporting. Any of these pieces that obviously needs to be looked at from a federal reporting perspective, the Pearl, we're trying to keep up on that too. Okay. Any questions about kind of what the work is going on right now before we get into our working session?
Hi, this is Christy. I do have a quick question. When you're talking about data migration, you're obviously not talking about customer stuff. You're talking about other things that are already in IWDS, correct?
We're talking about, we'll eventually be talking about everything. We haven't probably hit the customer stuff yet, but we're talking
I guess I'm just
everything
trying to
in
see what are you
IWDS, the data that's in IWDS. Yes.
like, are you talking about like providers
Yep.
and like
Yes.
training provide? Okay.
All that
I was just
data.
curious.
So you're right, as we build out the new database, the new structures, and of course the new interface that you're seeing that interfaces with that data, then we'll be able, as we build that out, we'll be able to pull over data into those structures from IWDS.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious. That's all. I didn't think it was customer data, but I was just curious. Thank you.
We'll probably be pulling that in soon, but we will also, from a UAT or staging perspective, we're probably going to, use that data and scramble it up a little bit. So, because it's test environments and we definitely don't want the customer data being, available anywhere there. But the methodology, the assets that we're building, the code assets that we're building to do that, will be in the work stream, and we will be building those out as we go to. So I hope that I may not answer that question right, because
No, you did.
talking
You did.
about
I was
customer
kind of
data.
I was just being a little nosy. That's all.
No, that's
So thank
totally
you.
okay. So we don't want to leave this to the end because it's not really it's not a simple process, right? It's moving data. And then of course, later we're going to be validating data too. We're going to have folks look at that data, make sure that, especially when we have two systems available still, we'll be able to compare that data. And that'll be down the road, of course, but we definitely want to get to work on this early, because our experience in past projects and everything is, if you leave that to the very end, then it could push our date out for turning on the new system, because there's a lot of stuff to build to get that to work correctly. The format, or however I want to say it, the schema as far as how we store data in the new system is not exactly how we're storing data in the old system. So we got to make sure we have the right relationships between things, contacts, locations, providers, services, and also customers. And we got to make sure all that is captured, because we're going to go back, several years and bring that data over, so that when you start up on day one, you're not going to be looking at two systems. You're going to be looking at the new system and be
Well,
able to.
that's why I asked, because something similar happened to us when we were doing Career Connect. So I'm glad to hear that you're saying you're starting it early, because we did have to push back just exactly for the reason you just mentioned.
Yep.
So that's why I was curious. So
Yeah,
thank you so much.
It's overlooked. It's not, a lot of times it's not an easy task. And we have to have a lot of eyes on it too, to make sure that it's valid. So, and obviously the numbers, the volume is big, right? So it's not like, you do take test sets, but still, you definitely want to start that early, that process. Otherwise, you can't really predict when you can go live. Any other questions? Good question though.
I would imagine doing like chunks at a time early, is a lot easier than a mad rush to get like, a
Yes.
gajillion bytes of data, like all at once, and then you could be asking for trouble, system, not
Yes.
system would crash, but it's just then when you do encounter a problem, it's like, okay, you got to stop, you got to back out. So that makes sense.
Yeah, that's the way, small bites to eat the elephant, right? It's a really big part of these projects. So we definitely want to take a little bit of time, kind of iterate through that process. We'll be able to see some of that, that data into our test environments too. So we get to work with it. So it's otherwise too, you got to just make up data, right? We have to seed data and make it up in order for the system to be able to be tested. We can't expect, this time was a little bit of an anomaly because we haven't got that data in here. And so I just went out and manually put in like 10 or 12, and then you folks put in some entities and locations and stuff like that on your own. That's okay too. We want that to happen, but also from being able to filter and all those kinds of things and make sure those are exercised, those pieces, we have to have data in there. And it's better to have data that is real than, if we can, than to have data that is just made up. Okay. Good deal. So I think I've got the floor with UAT. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go through some review of cycle 2, and then we'll kick off cycle 3 today. Hopefully some of you, if not all of you, have had a chance to get in there. Let me share my screen. Okay. So if you remember, hopefully some of you have put some comments in there. It's very much appreciated. These are good finds. And you'll notice, hopefully I've been able to keep up a couple of them today. Actually, I went back on, but so in cycle 2, so we had cycle 1, I had some, you'll notice these where I put these comments, I put a story number or a bug number. That tracks that back to our DevOps, development operations software. We open that story up, and then we have to get it teed up into assigned, groomed, planned, and assigned to a developer. So as those come in, we've been able to do that. We groom every week. We plan every other week, of course, make those assignments. That's what planning is. And so when you see these numbers here, that means that corresponds to a user story that I opened to define an upgrade or a fix on a bug to the developers. And we have some of those groomed yesterday, so they'll get assigned next week, but that means about 2 more weeks. So about 2 weeks plus a little day or two, you'll be able to see most of these come through. I think we'll get them planned. Most of them get them planned. Good stuff. Good feedback. I do want to comment on the state's response to these two I have in yellow. I brought that back to the state a couple weeks ago, and then yesterday we kind of mulled them over. The other was intentionally removed. So Chuck, I think you said it seems like we ought to have for entity types, we should have other. And I brought that up, and the state SMEs said, they thought about it, but they said we really intentionally wanted to remove that other. And so I guess my answer would be, if you have some specific entity types that do not fall under those, please get those my way, and then I can bring those to their attention. But they want to get away from that other category. We do have that other category in another place, and there was a suggestion that we had a text field. I think that was in the entity functions area, because we do have other in the entity functions area. And I think that's probably a pretty good idea that I'm going to take back to them too. When you select other on the entity functions, you specifically say what that is. The only problem with that is, once again, maybe, if you have an other in that situation also, maybe we should be thinking about, is it one that we put in the list? Because when you get to reporting aspect on the backside, when you get to reporting, filtering, those kinds of things, other could capture a lot of different things, and it doesn't give you a discrete information about what that entity is or what that entity function is. So anyway, that was brought up, and they said they'd like to leave that removed for now. This next one, this was a story opened default. I believe it was default to bring in the entity or identity column. That's a story we're going to do. This next one was, okay, so the accreditation that you used to see, it will be available on the entity, but we haven't brought that in yet. It does come in. There's 2 places that gets captured. One's on the pre-screening, and then the other one is in the training program part. But I think we're still going to need to have that as available in the entity attributes. So just that will probably come a little later, and I just got to figure out how that's going to flow into there, if it's going to flow in there from the pre-screening or not. But you will see it on the entity eventually. This is addressed. Let me get any other. You'll just notice I'm not going to go through each one of these, especially if there's a story open on them. These 3 have stories. That's a story. This one needs a story number. This has a story open on it. I just got to find out what the number is for you here. This has to do with tabbing from I believe it was the county drop down into the phone number. The phone number turns red. It looks like you're in it, but you're not in it. Your cursor's not in it. There's a story open on that one. The next 2. This one here from Rory. Let me see what I got here. Maybe I didn't see this.
And that one might have been the one, Al, when we were discussing last week, when I said, as soon as I typed that, I was watching the recording that I missed from the prior week. And I was like, oh, as I'm watching the recording, I'm playing around with the site and I'm typing my comments. And like, as soon as I typed that, I think I heard you in the recording say, we won't be adding contacts this time. We'll save that for cycle 2. So that first one, we may have addressed or answered that one, I think, last.
And cycle 2. Okay. Yeah. I'm just going back into this.
The second one, maybe not. That might have been one we talked about last week. I can't remember.
Oh, good. I didn't see this, by the way.
Oh, that's okay.
Let me, I don't know why that would have been pulled in from. other data. So I'm surprised that must have been misspelled on some other data we pulled in because we didn't type those in by hand. Okay.
Yeah, and it's not a misspelling. It was just my colleague here was like, is that supposed to be capitalized? I'm like, it's tomato,
Okay.
tomato. I don't care that much about it, but I just thought I'd throw it in there.
No, those are good too. Bring up any kind of spelling or grammar or anything like that, please. This one here I just looked at this morning, Crystal. This one, yeah, I think this was on social services. Do we really need that big social services box on the filters? We could collapse that probably. I think that would probably be a good idea. I don't know if that's that helpful. Also in here, I noticed this too. When you click into that, it doesn't fit into that. It's kind of clipped off. I need to open a ticket on that. We did realize that. It's funny because you don't realize it when you put your browser on a big screen and stretch it out. It doesn't happen, but when I put it down on my laptop, I did notice that same thing. And that's good to know. Like I mentioned before, we want to know different size screens and stuff like that because we want this stuff to be responsive and work right. I'll open a ticket on that one. This is already in a ticket. This county to be defaulted to out of state for states that are out of state. That's an open ticket. We'll get assigned. This one isn't a ticket also. Let me make sure. Yeah, I got this in a ticket. I just got to put the ticket number in here. This next one, looking out through. Yeah, this is the one I just talked about where, yeah, maybe we need a specific text field or something to capture that. But then maybe we need to know if there are others that we're missing. That would even be probably better. This is on add contacts active button, add relationship active button, but this appearance of the non-responsive drop-down box. Yes, this is all being changed. I have tickets open for that. So you can see all this. You will be able to see all of the entity functions and social services on that view screen without going into edit. You don't need to go into edit to see those. Yeah. Okay. You know what? I just saw this. Tori, is Tori on?
Yes, I'm here.
Give me an idea of this. I agree. Like if you are not, if you're looking for other hours, it's not really easy in the drop downs. I do agree with that. We did default it to 8 to 5, so it'd be a little easier to get to. But you got any ideas on this?
Right. So I think I was just thinking when I entered it for like Monday, 8 to 5, if there was a button to then check to where you can fill it in for Monday through Friday, because I had to go in and actually enter it on every single day, 8 to 5, 8 to 5.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I don't know what that could look like because I know you guys have the 24-hour one where you can just check that button and then it kind of automatically goes there. But
Yeah.
yeah. It was just a
Yeah,
little
we did
time consuming.
default. So our first default, which you probably saw, our first default is Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So that would help. But maybe we can just, replicate it or something. I'll look into this. It might be, but I did notice this is a little bit time consuming. Obviously, you're probably not doing it every day, but that is a little bit time consuming. Let me put this in here so I don't forget it. Okay, edit entity. Okay. All right, this is so this was interesting. I don't necessarily disagree, but there is some stuff going on here. So when you're in the location details, users add contacts there is an add contacts active button and an add relationship active button, but the appearance of a non-responsive drop-down box for any function is combined to make you think you're actually an edit screen. That's getting fixed. That's getting changed. You have to go back to the top, click active edit button on the top right to actually edit the location. That's correct. If you do click the edit button, now you no longer can add contacts. So it's kind of weird. Okay, so the interesting thing about this, there's a bunch in here you probably ought to read, but that's why I say there's a lot of information in here. You probably don't want to maybe too much, but it has to do with, it's a little tricky to go back and forth. So when you add a contact or even a relationship, it's basically sitting in the system and it's just associated with a location. It's not actually like part of a location. It's actually associated with location. So it gets a little tricky on edits and saves on the location if you're also in the middle of an add contact. That's why that is kind of like that. Now, it doesn't mean that, well, that's why when you're in the edit part of a location, you don't add contacts, you don't add relationships. You're just adding those to the location, the static location that exists. But give us a read. You got a good point, but I might be like you said, it might be a training issue. Contacts list at the bottom of any page, list each contact for each location separate, even though the same person serves as a contact one. So if one person is serving a contact for several locations, their name several times, would it be possible just one name and then their associated location for that interior entity in another column list? Well, it's kind of, it may look a little bit different. You can sort by location or you can sort by last name. If you want to see all the locations for a person, you can just sort by last name. If you want to see all the different contacts, we did it this way. If we put it in there, like, I guess we could like maybe not repeat the name or something, but there's not really a lot of room to put all these locations in one column for a contact. So, but we are changing one thing. This is on the entity screen, not the location screen, but on the location screen, it didn't show you which one was primary, which brought up a kind of a problem too. We are adding that column to the location, the context grid on the location page.
Yeah, I noticed that like in IWDS, it's they'll have
Shows
like
the
active
primary.
and primary, I think. So yeah, that would be good if you could.
Yeah, let me show you where that's going to be coming. So if I go to locations and I go to this grid, we're slipping that in here. We're moving this over a little bit and slipping in which one of these is primary and which one is not. So
Okay,
that'll be on that location. So that'll help because we had some issues here too. We actually had a defect here that we're going to talk about in a minute. And then we're doing a bunch of work here on 1077 or 10,077, 79, 80. These are three different ones that were open to fix this. This on the view piece and on the edit piece, we're fixing all this. So hopefully the way we fix this up, you will appreciate that. There's not going to be this overlap. There's going to be on the social services part, there's going to be, you're going to be able to select a category and it'll select the ones below it and all. The social services are going to be a pop out. This is going to tell you how many were selected. It doesn't tell you that right now. We're getting away from those pills because it doesn't help because you can only see one or two anyway. So there's a lot of changes that you guys, from this usage that didn't work very well that we're making in this area. So hopefully that'll help. This is a story that we opened. This is another one we opened. This is just referring to those changes. This is, yeah, this use location address thing. We have some fixes in there. We have some fixes. And there's another story. We've got that one open. This one, This one's going to be fixed too. It's got a one for that. This is a duplicate from another story. So those are all being addressed. Nothing there. This is a bug. Good catch. We've got that open. There's a couple things that are happening in here. One is that, and the other one is somebody hit out of state, but when you came in here, it dropped down all the counties for Illinois. So that's getting fixed. Okay, this piece right here, this is also a bug that was opened, defect. We've got this, Olivia captured this for us, how to recreate this. And we were able to, we should be able to fix that. So that's not going to happen again. And part of the stuff that came out of this bug is this was like you went in, set it, you came back out, you went back in, it didn't look like it was set. So you set it again and saved it. And it was an error. But the only way you could see that it was primary was if you went actually into the view of the contact, which that's why we brought that also out to the front to the grid. So a lot of good stuff came out of that. Thanks, folks, for that. Oh yeah, this one we're thinking about also, which is I believe when you're in a contact view, it shows you which locations that contact is associated with, but it doesn't allow you to just click them, I think is the problem there. But from the other side, from a location side, you can actually select contacts. So you can't do it both ways. Select locations for a contact or contacts for a location. So we're looking into that. That's what I kind of referred to there. So we're looking into these two, Crystal. I got to look a little bit more into those. So lots of good stuff came out of that. We appreciate all the help there. And we always want to know what doesn't work like you expect or can be enhanced or improved. And of course, any bugs. Okay. We're going to go to cycle 3 today. Okay. This gets a little tricky. We're going to take some time in here to demo this. This has got to do with relationships. I don't know if all you work with relationships and entities, but it's definitely, there's a 3-page add/edit form wizard that we're going to look at. We're also going to look at that grid at the bottom. There is a release 1 cycle 3 contents guide you can get to, which has the pages that we're talking about. Also always has that information at the top about what we're doing in UAT, how to get to the UAT, how to get to the OneNote. And then we'll send this link out again just so everybody remembers where it's at. And then the pages, just a little description in the pages that we're going to review in this. So this will tie us up with everything on entities and locations except training programs. Training programs are not done yet, but everything else for entities, locations, contacts, and then relationships will be all set then on this UAT session. The only thing left, which is big, but is the training program part. Okay, let me get right into it. All right, so when you get to UAT, you'll see this UAT here. You'll be at home. Don't worry about the login. You're over here under management tools and you're into entity management. All right. All right, I'm going to use, I guess I'll use this AlphaWorks. It's my dummy one. So I'm in the entity view, and then relationships are associated with a specific location, right? So we're going to go to this one, and you'll notice if I go down here to relationships, I've been working on a couple 3 in demo mode, and you'll be able to see how these look. Okay, so a relationship has a relationship ID. It has 1 or more funding sources, and it has a start and end date. Now, start and end dates and funding sources are showing up on this line according to start and end date. So like if I created this relationship here, named it whatever I wanted to name it, there'll be a field available for you to name it however your standards are. We're also going to add another generated field with some specifics. So we kind of did the best of both. I know we had talked about this. We sent out a survey. We talked about how should we have a standard relationship ID? We never really settled on one. Then we put this free form relationship ID up, which is up to 12 characters plus a sequence number at the end on a suffix, which is the way it is today. We'll still have that, but we're also going to have a generated one for reporting purposes. So that may be something like the LWIA number and a year or whatever that may be. But don't have to worry about that. You're not going to lose your capability to have this other field that names these relationships however you want. Okay. And that might work because we thought through that. That might work with your counting systems or whatever you're using that for in other systems. Okay. Even though you can set these up, and let me show you, if you'll notice 2402, for example, well, even 2401, and we're going to put one of the things we have here as a to-do item is put sorting on the relationship columns like we have another place. So you can sort these by date or funding sources or relationship ID, however you want to work with them. We'll get those on before too long. Now, if you notice here, like this 01 is here and it's here, and you say, well, why is it here twice? That's because there was a specific date range for that fund source, and then there's a different date range for all these fund sources. So that they're in here by date range. So the relationship ID, date range, and then fund source. So if I went into this one here on an edit view, you would see 1As here with all these had the same dates. And I haven't done anything with this yet. I'm going to go back because we're going to create one first. I don't want to go through edit yet, but I just wanted to show you how this was laid out. We'll try to get a little better in this date format. I was noticing that we might chop this column a little bit because it's going to be multiple rows anyway, and get these dates a little better. I don't like to have dates wrap if they don't have to. We'll work on that. This particular in here, I started and didn't do anything with. I'm going to start a new one first, and we're going to go through this process of add. So this in front of you is the add relationship form wizard. There's 3 pages to this. Okay. The first page covers the ID and the type. It also tells you the entity name you're under right now. It shows you the location you're under. So I'm going to put in here.
While you're doing that, Al, Rory has his hand raised.
Sure. Rory?
Oh, thanks. Sorry. If we can go in and see, like you're saying on that next screen, it's probably fine. I just didn't know, like by default, when you clicked on Alpha Works and then it lists all the entities, by default, will it list them in, it looked like reverse or chronological order from the most current start date range, or is it alphabetical? I think the date range one makes kind of sense to me, but I didn't, and it's, again, it's not a big deal.
No, that's good. Well, I think the default idea was going to be reverse chronological order, the most current to the top.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's kind of.
But we haven't got those sort things on there either to allow you to sort them differently. But yeah, I think if that works, that's probably what we're going to do. And then after that, reverse chronological order, then probably by
inactive or something.
A fund or something, or active, inactive. Yeah.
And you're talking about reverse chronological order by the end date, right?
Yes. Yeah. By the end date, not the start date.
Okay.
If that works, we could also do active at the top in chronological order, that's another way. So you could have active first, like anything
Oh.
that's active, and in chronological order.
I mean, if that's possible to have two filtering, like to have active.
Yeah, no, we could, yeah, we could say we
and
just want all the actives
chronological or
first.
reverse chronological, either one. But yeah, to have active first like that would be cool too.
That might be better too, is active in chronological order. Because that may be your thinking process, right? It's like, well, how many we're the ones that are getting a little older that maybe I need to look at and work with. Not sure.
Mhm.
We'll think about that. Over here, these are the types. IT vendor, other training vendor, other vendor, and referral. And then you could, if you have this much in here, you could just say, okay, I'm going to come back later, save and exit. You could cancel and say, oh, I don't want that. I don't know why I started that, or you could go to the next screen. Okay, funding. So now we're going to pick our funding sources. And you go to this add funding button. You can select one or more. As you saw, I selected several. And right now it's concentrated on WIOA, right? And so I could select all these, or I could say, okay, I'm just going to do 1A. Okay. Then you put in your start date. I'm going to put in July 1 of 24. I'm going to put in, so what you have to do is, obviously, I'm going to put in a third, but I'm going to put in your end date has to be greater than your start date, of course. So I'm going to put in like, I'm going to have to put in, doesn't really matter. I'll put in 26. Okay. Now, ignore this contract amount. It's been a decision to take this out. It's optional today. We can't really we don't want this to be confused on what it is, how it's used. Some are filling it in, some are not using it at all. And then what does that have to do with? So this field here is going away. Right now it's optional, so don't worry about it. Just want to tell you that was a decision that was made yesterday. Okay. So this gives me the one I selected, the start date, the end date. I can edit that. Once I edit, I cannot change. I can delete that as long as it's not associated or being used and all that. Of course, right now it's not, but in the future, I could delete those if they were not ever used or associated with anything. Now, I say associated with anything, there's a lot of things that could be associated with. So just let you know, there is that capability. This will go away if we will not allow you to delete it. The system will know and it won't let you do it. You can also edit it and change the dates. And I think that's going to be something a lot of you are going to do, is change that end date probably. All right. So the next page we have.
Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Okay. I agree with you on the contract amount because we really don't even use that. I never really saw a purpose of it because it doesn't break down anything. But when you were saying when you add the entity, you got to do the date greater than that day. Like if I want to enter it today, I got to use that today's date and I cannot go back to July. Is that correct?
Now, I can put anything on one of these dates as long as the end date is greater than the start date.
Or on the training service?
Well, no, on this funding source for this relationship, whatever this funding source covers, whatever date range you want, you can have in there. Wouldn't make much sense. It wouldn't make much sense to put the end date earlier in the day. I don't know why you do that, but you can have
I know in IWDS, we normally put an end date of like 6/30/2025 because then
right.
when the new fiscal year starts 7/1, based on if those companies or providers are so active, we open them back up again each year.
Yep.
So I know it was always a problem to change the start date on those entities, but we always had changed the end date to the next year, and so on and so on. So, okay, I just want to make sure that.
I tell you what, you might not, there'll be some cases where you will not be able to change the start date. And I'll tell you what those are. If you were going to move that start date later than services were provided, right? That
Yes.
would not work. We would
That
not.
won't work, right? Because the system gonna say it got something that started already. Yes, that is
Yes.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the system's going to have to be smart enough to know to not let you do that. So that field could be locked down when you go into edit, and only the end date be open. And then that end date could be that you can't move it backwards either before a certain service, right? So that
Correct.
may only be able to push that forward. So there's going to be a lot of logic around that to help you out, but it's not going to let you screw things up.
Okay, and also on those specialized grant, when we have a certain start and end date, and we want to put those start dates in on a provider, like say it's a 1E grant, that we could specify it to have the same start date of that grant that we received, correct?
Yes.
And can we also put that amount of the grant in that field, or we don't even worry about it anymore?
Don't worry about it here. Don't worry about it here. Now over in grant management, that's a different deal, but don't worry about it here in this relationship thing. Because there's,
Gotcha.
it gets really crazy because you could have like a bunch of different fund sources, right? And then you're like, okay, am I splitting that over a bunch of different fund sources? How am I managing that? It just doesn't make sense here. And that's why we're pulling it out. And that's what happens, right? To optional fields. Like if they're optional, well, a lot of people aren't going to use them, and then they're not going to be used right, right? So hopefully that wasn't a big thing you guys wanted, because that's getting.
Oh no, oh no.
Okay.
But here go one. What happened when we're using like a different grant, but not part of the Viola family, and we used to have like the other, where we could say, yeah, that person maybe getting paid through the ARPA grant, where it's not tied into IWDS, but we are doing stuff with it. How can we be able to put other under that provider? So when we enroll them, we could say, okay, we have some reason why we have to use others, not 1A, not 1D, none of the Viola title. But will you be able to do stuff like that for that entity?
Hold on a minute. I think I'm with you. So we have right now a bunch of other, even though this IWDS version 1 is very focused on Title I, right? WIOA. We have set this up so other programs can be in here. But I don't know. I have to table that. I don't know what other is. I don't remember seeing other. Where did you put other at? In a relationship?
In the in the title itself, when I'm doing the training part of it,
Okay.
to bring it over.
All right, I want to make a note of this because
I'll probably try to send you some screenshots just so you.
yeah. Can you do that, Robert,
because,
please?
yeah, because when you do that on the drop down box in IWDS, when you're adding the provider, when you want to set them up for training service,
Yeah.
that's where you would see all the other stuff you could add to it.
And that's on setting up the service, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I got that down. Did somebody say something about that? Christy?
Hi, I just have a question. And I apologize, maybe other people in the state have been doing this. I guess maybe this might be something I have not done or haven't been responsible for doing, but when you're adding these entities here, is this something that we, the local, are we expected to do this, or is this something like a system
Yeah, so-
administrator would do?
Yeah.
I'm just,
Christy,
okay,
this will be someone in the LWIA that adds the relationships, sets up the relationships and the funding on
Mm.
each entity location. So each provider location. And
okay,
that's the way when you're over in services, that when you select, hey, I want to add this service, it brings up this whole group of potential providers that could provide that service based upon this information. So this is a configuration thing. I'm not sure who I'm not sure who the role is.
Okay, I
System
got it. And I just
administrator-
wanted to make sure that it wasn't something that
System
maybe we,
administrator would do that at one time.
At the LWIA, yeah,
okay,
administrators.
it's at the LWIA level. Got it. Thank you so
Administrator would
much.
be doing
Because
that.
you know about your providers and you know about those locations, and you know what funds are available, from those for those providers from those locations. So that's why that's managed at the local level. But it's set up like, set it up, forget it, kind of concept. You set that up. Most folks do it in a fiscal, like look at all of them. I don't think they do them a lot, but maybe I'm wrong there. But then once they're set up, then later on, it's all connected in the back end to services and all that can be provided. So when you add a service, it'll find which providers could provide that service based upon this information. I'm going to go to the next piece. Well, this will probably make more sense. So once we get into, so 1A, okay, the service matrix gives us this. These are called service level. Before, just for anybody that's familiar with the screens before, they were called programs. These are called service levels, okay? Some of these service level also have services that you can check, okay? If you have something like training services, career services, excuse me, that has specific services you can select, then you'll see a button over here and it'll tell you how many are selected. So there's 4 or 5 screens today in IWDS that goes through this. This is a little bit more consolidated, but I can select these. I can select all of these, say, okay, all these are going to be available for 1A from this provider at this location. And then I could say, okay, these are all the services under trained services level. This is a service level. Under this service level of training services, you have all these, okay? You can select them all, or you can select specific ones, okay? That's how that works. And then once you select whatever you want to select, there's supportive services also in here. Then you save that and it'll tell you, hey, you've got 4 services there that are selected under the service level, okay? That's how that works. So that's how you see them, that's how you select them, and it'll tell you how many. Okay, so this gets a little deep, I know, but so for a fund source, excuse me, you can select. So this is kind of, you've kind of seen this before as a big page. I mean, in IWDS, this just works a little different, but you have this big page that has all these, and then you go next, and it gives you all those again. You go next, and it gives you the ability, and you go next, like a bunch of times. If you want to get through that, you'd probably go 5 nexts through all this to get through all those pages, and then configure all those today called activities and all that. Well, we kind of consolidated this into one page with the ability to go to a pop-up to get your services. Okay, hopefully that's understandable what I'm saying. I know this is a little different, and I don't have the other one in front of me to show you, but if you remembered on this relationships, anybody that's dealt with this before, you select the fund sources, and then those fund sources are put into rows on one page with the dates. And then you go next, and it goes next through every one of the fund sources and every one of the programs and every one of the activities you can select. So there would be probably, dozen screens possibly. This one, you select the fund sources, go to this page, you can activate which ones of the service levels you have for that fund source. And then you can also select the services right there, which these used to be activities and these used to be programs, just a little different naming here. Okay. But this programming got confusing. So they took that out and made this service levels and services. Any questions here? Don't be afraid to ask questions here. I know
We do have
all-
some questions. There are some questions in the chat.
Okay, let me look at the chat here real quick. All right, so it looks like we're okay. Like service level and service will replace the language. Yes, programs and activities. Very good. Yep, that's exactly correct. there isn't any intensive service anymore, which was, there is intensive service. It's just intensive service. So there wasn't anything under that. Does that make sense, Rory? Or whoever that was?
Yeah, so, but under WIOA, there is no, like core and intensive service. That was WIA. So the verbiage has changed. It's staff assisted and career services.
Yeah, this has changed a little bit.
So there is
We have
no
a service.
intensive service.
We can also give you the new service matrix if you haven't got it yet. To show you this, how this all, it's in a spreadsheet, works out. Yeah. So these have been a lot of changes in here. You might want to dial into what these are.
But why would we want to put some of the old stuff that we no longer use? Because that register required core service, we don't use that no more. So are we going to still bring over the old one? Because when we do the grandfathering, and I'm guessing maybe because you need it for the grandfather purpose, but I don't have none of those old ones active anymore since they shut those down. So why would we want to keep the old information? Just curious.
I'll ask. I didn't know you didn't use them anymore. I was just, this is the list.
Nope. Nope. We don't
And then the
use
other thing
them.
is, yeah, okay. I got that down as a note. Obviously you wouldn't have to check it, but I do have it, to see how that's going to work out. Yeah. I'll see. Okay. And then I save this, at the end. I'm at the third page. I save and exit. And then we have set up, now I'm into just the view only mode. So it goes right back in the relationship. It's in view only mode right now. So whenever we actually click this alpha 2501 in our, whoops, right there. So alpha 2501. When I click on that, I come into view mode. Okay. We don't like to take you into edit mode because you might not recognize that you're in edit mode. So we're into view mode. You see all of those, everything here on this view page. You'll see the ones that are checked. Now these are the ones that are checked. It just so happens I checked them all. So this is going to be the same. But if I hadn't checked them all, let's go back and take away this registry require core service. Let's take that away. So I come in here, I go next, and then I'm going to go to the next page, and I'm going to take this one away. Okay. And I'm going to save and exit that. Now you'll see when I show all, it shows all, but if I don't show all, it just shows the ones that are selected. Okay.
Nice.
So you can see just the ones that you've all got configured, or you could say, well, what did I not configure? You could see those two. Okay. And then if we want to edit, you can go into edit, and the edit just works pretty much just like the add. It's just the same 3 pages. So this is what we want you to dig into this week. Find things. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I was just wondering, for the training services, you have, when you clicked on view and you had the other ones that showed up. Yeah, here. Is this differentiated for the youth? So if you put, 1Y,
Yes.
is it differentiated? Because on the youth side, OJT is not a training service.
Let's
So
go
will
here. It better be right. Let's go in here. Let's create a new one. Well, we might have a youth one here. Here's a youth one. Let's go into this one here. And then let's go into, okay, so let's go ahead and edit this. We'll go to this page. So there's youth. Let's go to the next page. All right, let's see what we have. All right, so we have youth, and we have.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because in IWDS right now, again, I'm going to use the old terms for program and activity or for title. So if you use title, if the fund source is 1Y, I think then when you go into programs and then activities, it kind of just defaults to like, it knows to only populate it with the program and activity codes and number and titles for, that would be under youth. So you don't have the whole entire list of the service matrix activities, for adults and youth, not that would be
Right.
at the end of the world, but it's just like, if you could, if there's a way that the system is
We don't
ensuring that
have, correct.
when you
Do not have youth training.
when you select youth as the title, then when you go into service or service levels and service, it'd be nice if it would just isolate only
Yep.
the service levels that are included, that are under the
Right.
youth, the Title I Y fund source.
And these are the
versus
youth services right
all-
here. Yep.
Okay.
If it would have had, other than, if it would have had, it would have been in here, but it's not in here.
So for the youth, it'll just be under youth services and
Yes,
all of it is just listed.
And then there's
as such.
40, yep, and then there's 40 services underneath that service level.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this one here is going away, if I remember right. Maybe Taylor knows. Future service thing. I thought that was going away. Taylor, is that going away?
Yeah, I believe that is eventually going away because we're going to be able to do plan start dates and plan end dates for
Yeah.
all of the other services. So you'll be able to plan the specific service for a future scheduled service instead of having this kind of generic placeholder.
Yep, I think that's those. If you see those, just ignore those. I think those are going away. Futures. I'm gonna write that down so I don't forget it. Other questions? Hope this is kind of straightforward. Maybe you want to bounce back in at IWDS if for some of you just kind of see the differences and compare, but to kind of refresh you, because I know everybody doesn't use this every day, this relationship management stuff, but definitely something you want to make sure you understand and make sure you think it's how you would want to use it. So under relationship, let's go back to make sure I can drive you into where this is. So if I go under, I'm on this home page, I got the entities, I found my entity. Then I'm looking for a location, right? If I go here, I don't know if there's any here. And then on this left, you can just jump to it. You could scroll to it here, or you can just jump to it. And as you see here, I don't have any yet on this particular location. Add a relationship and go through the 3 pages. There's 3 pages. All righty. And that should take you through this cycle 3. Please put all your comments and feedback in these 3. This is for page 1, page 2, and page 3. I probably should have one for the grid too. Let me add a page. Location, details, relationship, list. I'll put it as a list. So that's probably the first thing you're going to see. So if you have any issues in there or suggestions or problems, please put them in these 3 areas for us, and I'll try to keep up with you. And that's all I have. Anyone have anything else?
You're gonna send us the links for this one?
Yes, we will. Yes.
Okay. Is it gonna be a different link every week?
Nope, same link every week. If you notice, I actually, whoops. Well, I didn't have, I'm gonna show you.
I mean, for like the cycle 1, 2,
The cycle
3.
page, this is all the same. This should be all the same notebook. And then
Okay,
it's a notebook, and this is the section. And then we'll give you a link to the notebook, a link to the document, which is this document, and a link to the UAT site.
okay, thank you.
3 links we'll send out. Okay.
And then it looks like Rory has his hand up.
Hey, Roy.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If it's possible, for you to show your screen again in the.
Sure.
It might have been there, and I might just like looking away from my screen at coincidentally at the time when you were going through. So if you go to add the relationship,
Okay, so let me go back here. So this is the list, right?
Right.
And you go into you hit one of the entities,
Yeah.
size
okay.
providers, right? Whatever. And
Yeah.
then this is the screen for the entity that has all the locations on it, right? And then you can go into one of the locations, like say, let's go into this one.
Right.
This
So
is
it's
location details, these location details.
yeah. And then when you cut down to relationships,
You can go right here if you want, or you can actually go this way. But I'll
and then
just
it
go.
was
Okay.
yeah, it was in the when you go to add relationship,
You bet.
for relationship type in the Dropbox, I know I did hear you confirm that's what they talked about last week, that they're getting rid of that contract amount text box field because that wasn't used. But as far as contract for a relationship type, and I apologize, I think this was discussed maybe way back when we were getting feedback about how we use these functions in the old IWDS. And I think it was mentioned, but I can't remember. But oh, I think there it is. Never mind. Is subrecipient going to replace, I guess, what we used to when it's contract?
I think so.
Okay. I just want to make sure because
I didn't
we don't
scroll
use
far enough. Sorry about that. Yeah.
no, that's fine. I think you did really quick. And as I looked up, I was like, wait, what was that? But I didn't want to interrupt you in the middle of the flow
No
of showing the
problem.
screen it the first time. So,
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
yeah, we don't always use, sometimes we used to, but we don't always use that contract amount
Yep.
box, like you said. But we do designate when we're creating relationships. We do like to be able to designate if it's because there's a couple, at least in our area, maybe throughout the state, there's others. So there's a couple uh, of entities that are ITA. They do offer regular vocational training classes, but they also have done subcontracted or subrecipient stuff. In McHenry First Institute Training Management is one that comes to mind. So we like to be able to make sure that if somebody's going through looking for like selecting the relationship when they're enrolling somebody, that they know for sure that they're selecting the one that is for the subrecipient, the contract that we might have had with them versus just sending someone there on an ITA. So as long as there's something in that Dropbox subrecipient that works, I just wanted to make sure that there was some way to designate that in the relationship type. So thanks for going back and pulling that back up.
No problem. No problem. And there you go. All right. Any other questions? So there's the right here is the link. We'll get that out for the site. Don't worry about the login. Go to management tools, entity management. We'll give you a link to this page, which is our guide for cycle 3. And then we'll give you a link to this OneNote, which gets you right here. When you click on cycle 3, it gives you the different areas you can report any issues or enhancements or concerns. Okay. Thanks for everyone that's been participating, and hopefully we can get a lot more in there to try this out.